Welcome to the show. Today, you guys are going to get impressed. We're going to talk a lot about hiring. You entrepreneurs out there that are really struggling to get the right people on the bus. You're going to meet today Miche Rayment. She's really all about hiring the proper process, and you're going to love this. So I'm going to get right at it. Miche, what am I doing wrong when I hire people?
Well, most people make one of four mistakes or some combination thereof. And the first is that they hire with not enough of or the right people. So they're trying to make decisions about who's going to be hired, one person or two people on the team. And we can talk more about the solution.
So one like I have one hiring person, right? Let's say today that that's person A, and person A is in charge of going out to LinkedIn, all the platforms to find resumes, right?
Okay.
Is that what you're talking about?
No, I mean, that's the project manager, and
Okay.
that's a necessary person on the team. If you're the only person seeing candidates and you're the only person making the choice of who's going to be hired, that's a big mistake. You need multiple perspectives on your hiring team.
How big should that team be? So let's say that I'm hiring on my operations side, or for us it's construction, right? I'm looking for a project manager, right?
Mhm.
They're the person that person would report to. Obviously, they're in the mix, but who else should be in that mix when we're talking about how we're hiring in a hiring team?
Well, there's a number of roles on a hiring team. There's generally the person at the end of the line who's choosing, who's the one making the decision. Then there are peers. So people who are going to report to this person, or people who are peers to this person, or people who are going to lead that person. There's the project manager. There's someone we call the intuitive. So someone who really understands people, but may not have all the other pieces. And the peer often provides that kind of technical look at an individual. What skills do they need? And then the last role is somebody we call the vested, but not part of the organization person. So let's say you're hiring a VP of sales. Who better to help you decide how they like to be sold and how this person reacts with your product and your services than your best customer? Why not have your best customer on your hiring team?
That's interesting. So I love, when I look at it, I feel like we've got several of those roles pretty well figured out. I call it the gauntlet, right? We run people through a gauntlet, and there's the intuitive one, right? She's not in charge of the person, but we bring her up, and it's like a smell test. Like there are some they can figure out if the person has evil spirits or not. I don't know how to describe it other than there's a gut feeling that this person has, and she does an amazing job of knowing. Just spending some time with them in a second can give you kind of a yes or no. And I would say it's about 90% right. I mean, I don't know what it is about her intuition, but she's got great intuition.
Yeah, if you give the intuitive person on your team a rubric for what it looks like for the right fit, like you say, best in class, does she know what that means, best in class? Do you have a common understanding of what best in class is? And if you do, then you're definitely working toward taking care of one of the second biggest concern. That's most people think they know what they're looking for, but they really don't.
Well, so there's a lot right there. So I'm going to take best in class and put that over on the shelf for a second, because where we are as we migrate, through development of a company, right? We started with, I started with friends, and I call them scarecrows. Like literally, I went and found people that were breathing. I tied them to a stick, and I shook the stick every time a customer came by and pretend like they were employees, right? They were friends and family, and they were just,
That happens often.
I couldn't afford at the time. I was broken. My judgment was I couldn't afford, real employees at the time. And, like my first project manager, he was a bartender, And I'm like, okay, I put him on a job site, and I think to myself, all right, now he's a smart guy, and he turns out to be pretty good. But early days there was that, and then we went through trying to find hey, someone who'd worked for other companies, and today we really are looking for that we're looking for those people that understand. Somebody's going to help pull us forward. I'm looking for people that are smarter than I am when I'm bringing them on board, right? I'm looking for the best at the business, and we'll talk a little bit about best in class here a little bit more in a second. But all right, so we get it. So our hiring project manager, which I like the way you call that, a project manager. They're in charge of getting getting resumes and doing kind of a swift. They go through it pretty well, right? Looking at skill sets, looking at past work, doing a first interview with the person.
Yeah, so project manager is responsible for managing what you just called the gauntlet. We call it the obstacle course.
Okay.
And the obstacle course is a set number of interactions with every candidate, and every single step requires somebody on your hiring team to be making an assessment. Do they fit best in class? Do they fit with the skills that you need? Do they fit with the intuitive sense of, yes, this is a person that I would consider?
Now, the problem we run into is we never have enough time. Now, I know you're going to come. Next thing you say is you don't have enough time not to do this, right? I know that. I know the behavior is one of. But someone says, "Hey, I'm quitting. Here's 2 weeks notice." By the time we get out to the marketplace, start getting resumes in, weed through the bunches of stuff that's not there. Even when we do our best, when we've got people teed up, that process still takes, by the time you get people in for interview, by the time you get them into the office or on a Zoom call, that process, we seem to struggle a little bit in having, the right amount of time. So we end up rushing through that, and that, we shortchange the process.
Yeah, that's most definitely an anxiety that all employers face at some point in the game. It's either an employee market or an employer market, right? But if you get really good at the critical steps of the gauntlet or the obstacle course, you can move fast, but you still have to be super focused on what exactly am I looking for? Because you could see a piece that this person has, and you are so drawn to make this gut decision. And if you don't make yourself follow some process, even if it is an abbreviated one, you are doing yourself a major disservice.
Well, and that happens a lot too. There'll be one or two things about someone that's great. We just went through this process with a young man, and he comes to us, and it seems like it's a family man. He's got some great stuff. Great. We go through the process a little faster than we normally do, and then we go to pull the trigger on him. We find out, he's got no cell phone. He's got no automobile, or his automobiles are all broken, right? Yeah. He's got a bunch of bills, and all of a sudden, these are some things that, if I really had to tell the truth about it, we kind of rushed, and we didn't do those things that were going to be important to have, to have a successful employee.
Yeah. So that particular obstacle, do they have everything that they need in order to be on board and productive? Do they have the infrastructure? That kind of assessment can be made very early on, which is, hey, here's a checklist of all the things that you need. Check them all off.
So let's go through that. So project manager, just go back through the process. So step one is?
Well, it depends. I mean, so we have two different design aspects to every obstacle course. You have to get really good at designing an obstacle course.
Okay.
And those two steps those two aspects are low touch steps. So you can ask somebody to fill out this form. This could be a very low touch step. Doesn't take any of your time, Tony, or your leadership time. It takes the project manager to assign them to go through the checklist and bring it back.
All right. So
That's a low touch step.
So that's literally just a questionnaire
Exactly.
that answers a majority of the same questions we ask all the time on an interview.
Exactly.
Give me some examples.
Some examples. You could bring up this individual that you were talking about and say, do you have a cell phone you can use? Do you have transportation? Is there anything that is in the way right now that you need, that you feel like you would need in order to do this job? So it can be a pretty quick checklist. But my point in this, Tony, is that everybody's obstacle course is going to look slightly different. So you just have to design it from the beginning and catch those things that happen.
Okay, got it. So we got a questionnaire, low touch, low impact. Project managers handling that.
Sure.
Right now on a stab, and let's kind of go through kind of standard. I'm just trying to give people an idea how to build their obstacle course.
Okay. So generally a good obstacle course has no less than 3 steps in it, no less, and probably no more than 5. If you're talking about a mid-level position or a starting position. So you need low touch steps, which will say, okay, this person doesn't have the infrastructure they need, and we are not going to provide it for them.
Got it.
So that you suss them out. But the other people who check them all off move on to what we'll call higher touch steps. And those are perhaps a phone interview, 15-minute phone interview. And if they say, nasty words that you don't like to hear, you can, again, suss them out. But the more that we move them along in this process, the more time we're investing in them.
All right. So now who's doing that 15-minute interview? Is that typically the project manager or is that the hiring manager?
It depends. So again, it depends upon who's in the organization, because every small business is different, right?
Yep.
If it's the project manager, they better be capable of running an interview. So they will have had to have some interview skills, some ability to conduct a good interview. And you write a script, and it's the exact same script for every single person. It might be, hey, what do you know about our company? And if you're looking for somebody that's curious, that's on your rubric of what you want. And they say, well, I don't know much. I was hoping to find out now. Then they're not curious.
Got it. So look, a great candidate would have done a little bit of research.
Exactly.
Right. Now, is that something you prompt them to before you would invite them to? Hey, if you want to find out more about us, here's our website. Do you do any of that kind of stuff?
No. I mean, I wouldn't, but if I'm looking for a curious person, because if they're a curious person, they're going to already have done that. But if I lead them, then I'm likely going to see something I want to see rather than what I really see. If that makes sense.
And I do that all the time, right? I interview I'll lead into who we are, what we're up to, and what we're looking for before I start asking questions. And of course, they're going to answer questions just to that interview. So just talk a little bit. So we get we have the interview, right? And we're going to get curious. We're looking to find out some curious. So what do you know about the company? What other questions might you ask?
So the script for a 15-minute interview is generally somewhere between 3 and 6 questions.
Okay.
If they engage. If they don't engage, they just answer short, yes, no, whatever. Then we know we have to design a better script. But so the questions would be something like, okay, you have to give me context. What kind of company are we talking about here?
Let's go with CDO Group, a construction company, right?
Okay.
We're hiring for a superintendent in the field. It'll be a field-based person. Typically, we'll be on a job site. It'll be all around the country. It'll be a traveling superintendent, so somebody who would be responsible to go from job to job. Right. Typically, our jobs are anywhere from 4 to 5 months at a time, and they would travel from project to project. So let's look at, we're hiring a superintendent.
Yeah. So tell me, Tony, a little bit about your process for keeping organized with multiple projects.
Okay. So I ask them a little bit about their organizational skills.
Yeah. I mean, that I would think that in that position, you would need that. But this is leading us all back to, we have to have constructed what I'm calling the right fit, exactly what we're looking for. That's what drives what questions you're going to ask. So if you're looking for somebody with good organizational skills, yes, I would say you need to ask a question like that. And it can't be leading.
So you start with the right fit. So, okay, the perfect candidate would look like this kind of answer. That's what we're doing. So we as a team are putting that together. Like, what would our perfect candidate look like?
Yes. So we need to know, we have to have that in mind as we're looking at someone, because when we hire, if we're not looking for what we would have to invest in this person to make them the best fit for us, if we're just looking for the things that they have rather than the things that they don't have, then we're doing ourselves a disservice. We lose track of what we would have to do to get someone to the right place, to get them to a place where they're productive for us, right? So if we ask the questions around exactly what we're looking for, let's say we're looking for organization, and we say, how do you keep organized? And they say, oh, sometimes I write stuff down. Sometimes I don't. Do you use any organizational tool? No, I've thought about that, but I don't have one. You start to see what you would have to invest in that person or with an organizational skill, right?
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes complete sense. I often I blind myself to that question, right? To really look for it. I'm always trying to talk myself into the people I'm interviewing.
Yeah. Can I tell you why, Tony?
Yeah.
Because you love people.
Yeah.
You will find something you love about every person you run into.
That's right.
And you will negate or maybe minimize the limiting qualities because they have these beautiful genius qualities. And that's precisely why I designed this system the way I did, is because I love people and I would hire everybody that came in the door.
and that's what ends up happening, because then we end up looking at them through rose-colored lenses. Exactly. And then we're looking for the great stuff in them. And then what we're doing is then we're left later on not facing the parts that they're not capable of doing. Exactly. Right? Their limitations. Yep. We don't face that. And then they end up burning out or end up messing up and then end up, tapping out. And for whatever reason, they're frustrated because we didn't address or deal with the inefficiencies or, stuff that they weren't prepared for.
Exactly. And, part of this system is pushing us to make sure that we're looking for evidence. We're looking for behavior that shows how they're going to be the right fit and where they're not. So we can then, at the end of this process, have a really good indication of where they fit and where they don't. Got
it. So we're interviewing them. We've got a list of 3 to 6 questions. We take them through those questions. Project manager's doing that first step maybe for us. And we went through that. All right, I got the questionnaire filled out. I got the questions during the interview. Now I'm working on
here's the other design principle that is imperative. Every single step in your process needs to have what I would call an assignment. And that assignment, for instance, we've already talked about one. Please fill out this form to let us know what your needs on the job site. You know, phone, transportation, whatever. Good boots, steel-toed boots, you know, whatever it is. That's an assignment. If they can't fill that out, if you send that to them and they don't fill it out, that is an indication of how you are going to have to lead them when they're on the job, right?
So wait, hold on. So they're saying, hey, these are items that I'm needing, right? But no one
Yep.
ever does that. I mean, my judgment is that when I'm interviewing people, no one ever tells me their flaws or needs.
Well, of course they don't,
Right.
but it behooves them to tell you what they need, right? And it's very possible that you'll get to the end of this process and you will see things that will make you not choose this person. Now, it's up to you. It's up to everybody who's in a hiring process. Do I tell someone I'm saying, no, I'm sorry, you're not going to be considered for this job, why I didn't hire them? Yes, sometimes I do. Sometimes I say, you know what? It's imperative that you have these 10 things. Can you come back in 5 months and apply again? Or 2 months or a month, you know, whatever you want. But this is an assignment. If you have to drag them in, you're going to have to drag them around, right?
Every day. It happens here. I love that. If I have to drag them in, I'll have to drag them around.
Yeah.
Huh. That's how many of us have done that? Oh, okay, guys, entrepreneurs, if you're out there, you're listening to this right now, put a comment down below. Come on, all of us, you've done it. Come on, you guys have all done it. This is what I love about our podcast, guys. All of you guys are very vulnerable and share with what you go through, right? This is where you're helping the other entrepreneurs out, knowing we're not alone. We all do the same thing. Look, I've been 27 years. I have a CDO group, and I still make a majority of everything we talked about. These mistakes, I do them every day. Right. We still, after 27 years, still make these mistakes. They're like a character defect. And my judgment is that, you get good at them for a while and then you get bad at them for a while. Then you get good at them for a while. Then it's kind of like working out. I was great. I got to the gym every day. And then I stopped going to the gym and I started eating bonbons. Right. Right. The ebb and tide of good behaviors as an organization.
Yeah, I'll give you one more assignment that would be great in this field. And that is, show up for a tour of a job site. And you could have 10 candidates show up at the same time or ask them to show up at the same time. If they don't show up, clearly that is an indication of them choosing themselves out, right? That's an assignment.
Got it. I love that. Yeah, it's having going through just checking. If you're not willing to go there, are you really willing to do anything? To show up for work?
Yeah, another assignment is here. Take this hammer and pull out those 10 crappily pounded in nails. Do they know how to do that? You start to see what they know and what they don't know.
Got it. So now I've gone through. Let's continue down the gauntlet, right? Now I go through and I've got a questionnaire. I do an assignment. I have a couple of different questions on there. Now all right, myself and the hiring manager and the project manager, we like it. Now the rest of the gauntlet, let's talk about those roles and who's in those roles and what we're looking for them to do.
So I would say you can almost fit your intuitive in lots of different places. So that's kind of a no-brainer for me. It's like they show up and maybe they're there when people are walking around and they're watching people and just engaging with one or two of the candidates. Another step for the peer. So there's somebody already on your job site, already working. You pair them all up with someone and you just have them have a short conversation. And every single one of those peers needs to know, what do you mean by best in class? What do you mean by safety first? What do you mean by these things that we care about? And they will all have a perspective on whether this individual is a good fit or not.
Got it. And now we're done with that section there, and we pull them and take their input. Got it. Now, once we get through that, we like them, the team likes them, we've got some consensus on it. What's the right way to bring somebody on board?
Okay. Well, that's a great question, but if you don't mind, I'm going to back you up just a little bit.
Sure.
So if you have a very good construct for what you think is the right fit, you can go through every one of those key components and you can say, yes, I saw behavior that would indicate this person is the right person. Or no, I saw some behavior that is counter to what we're looking for. So instead of doing the thumbs up or the thumbs down as a team, every single person goes through their rubric and says, yes, I saw some great behavior. I saw some negative stuff. Those negative things, that's gold, because you can start to see what you'd have to invest in this person if you actually hired them. If you hire them, after you see that negative thing, you're going to be dragging them around that thing, right? And I don't know about you, but I'm sick of dragging people.
But it does seem like that's a little bit about, when we say that, yet have you ever hired a perfect candidate?
I will say that there is no such thing as a purple squirrel, but
Right.
you definitely can hire someone that has negatives, knowing that they can learn. So you're then making the assessment, are they capable of learning?
The problem is I don't get any negative stuff when I'm hiring somebody. I never get the negative stuff. I'm always looking for all the positive stuff. This is a whole nother way of thinking about how to hire somebody, right? You're actually going through the process, really understanding, hey, look, I want to get clear about where we try to ask some questions like that, but tell me about the most negative thing that ever happened on a job site. Tell me about, one of the biggest problems you had on a project. Tell me about your worst experience with a boss that you work for, right? You ask some of those questions and you kind of get, judgment it's a BS answer. It's even a BS question, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's really where we need to make sure that the people that are interviewing have good interviewing chops. So one of the things we force people through in the system is, if you ask them a question, you have to rate them. Either you saw behavior that was for them or you saw behavior that was against them. But you actually have to say what the behavior was that you saw.
Got it.
So this kind of forces us into being realistic, not optimistic about a person.
Yeah, it's a tough one, right? Because right now, I feel like we're around the marketplace. I'm trying to get optimistic about people we're hiring, and my judgments we get, we'll get 4 out of 5, but not necessarily 5, and a lot of times we're at 3 out of 5 than 4 out of 5. We're getting some good stuff, but oftentimes we're in a pickle, right? We've got some stuff that we need done now, and.
Okay, so here is a great assignment for you, Tony. You don't have to go through a process to say, all right, you're hired today. You can make an assignment be the last step in their obstacle course. So and that assignment might be show up for your first day and then have them do a number of things, or show up for a week. If you do well in this week, we will hire you.
Yeah, sometimes that works, but sometimes people are quitting jobs. They're not quite there yet, right? So there's a little bit of risk in asking that question. Yeah, we get kind of a mixed bag with that. Yeah, we've often said our first 90 days is a testing period for both of
Oh,
us.
nice. Okay.
You
Yeah.
know,
So that's your onboarding time, right?
yeah. Yeah, we'll kind of give them a little bit like, hey, this is going to be our first 90 days together. We're going to work on really getting to know each other and seeing what we like about each other and what we don't like.
Well, so here's what I generally ask people to do for their onboarding period. I ask them each, both the employer and the employee, to say what they want to know, what they want to do, and what they want to feel by the end of 90 days.
No,
Do, feel.
do, feel. So
Yeah.
give me a little bit more on that.
So if you have put someone through the gauntlet or the obstacle course, and you've come to the conclusion that one of the things that you would like for them to know is what is safety on a job site, then the first thing is have them take a 2-hour course online, or
and we do that. Like we'll do a OSHA 10, OSHA 30, OSHA 10.
Yep.
Well,
So there might be a number of no's, like maybe one of the things you'd like them to know is more about your company. So those no's are relatively easy. But also what's really interesting is making sure that the employee has a say in what's on that 90-day ramp up plan or the 90-day onboarding plan.
All right. So they're part of creating that with us.
Yes, they are.
All right. So what would you like to know at the end of 90 days?
Exactly.
What would you like to be doing at the end of 90 days? And
what would you like to have done by the end of 90 days? And perhaps done is, it could be something as simple as I would like to have roughed in a room by myself, or something. Yeah. I don't know.
What about feel? What would you like to feel at the end of 90 days?
Yeah. So, Tony, I have been known for what I would call more foo-foo, or I call it mood is part of your culture.
Absolutely.
So if you can say, I want to feel empowered to be able to, make up my day, or I want to feel valued, that's very different than being empowered. I want to feel like a part of the community. What are those things that you're going to have to do as an employer and them as an employee to feel part of the community, to feel valued, to feel
part of the group, right? What are those things? What do you have to do to feel like you're in, right? Yeah. In the first 90 days, what did you do to get in? All right, got it.
Yeah.
All right. Now we got through the hiring. Let's go back through the hiring system, right? Uh-huh. We went through a little bit of we talked a little bit about the gauntlet, right? Now we talked a little bit about setting up for our first assignment. Uh-huh. What are some other things that are in that interview system or that hiring system?
In the hiring system, so this is central to what I am doing. Now, my system is all about hiring for culture and skill. So we have to have a really good sense of what culture means.
So give me some of that, because I think that's one of those ones where it's like holding a fish.
Yeah.
What does it mean? I mean, like is it because are we diversified? I mean, we've messed up more cultural conversations, forcing them. Are we a get it done kind of company? Are we a work hard kind of company? Are we, for most of my career, I treated CDO employees like a Spartan war camp, right? It was great. We got a lot of stuff done, but I'd look back over the field and I'm like, there's a lot of dead bodies back there, right? we got look at look at all the stuff we got done, but we wore some people out.
Yeah.
Right. There's a kind of
So culture, what does culture mean?
Yeah.
Most people treat it as a feeling or a slimy fish, if you will. You can't keep your hands on it, right? So culture is two things. It is what is driving everyday decisions and actions. In a sense, what do you care about? If you care about safety, then your decisions and your actions have to be oriented around safety, right?
Well, I mean, if you as a leader your people aren't first, at least for me, I can't imagine how you're leading anybody if they're not first, right?
Well,
Some people say customer first, but I'm like, look, you ain't doing anything for your customers if you're not first taking care of the employees that work for you.
well, great. So that's one component of your culture.
Yeah,
So
but
if
that's a
that's
hard one because human beings are tough they're tough to hold on to.
yeah, yeah. I mean, so what does that mean? Them first, that onboarding process, and we're saying, what do you want to feel at the end of 90 days? That
Well,
gets you an awful lot of information about what that person wants in a community, so you can take care of them better.
right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. So as a leader, for me, I'm always trying to. I'm just trying to relate this to what I go through. I'm always trying to build people, right? So far, I've really come out to believe that if I build people, they'll build the company, right?
Nice.
They do a great job. My job is to work on supporting the people that work here, and what that means to me is, all right, what's their training? What are we doing to support them? What are we doing to make sure they feel powerfully engaged with a vision of what we're doing that pulls them forward, right, dynamically, right? So something that really pulls them into it, not out of, well, you forgot to do this, or that shame-based old way of being,
Yeah.
beating people to get somewhere feels not very exciting, right? For us,
Yeah.
for me at least, it's always about pulling them into a bigger, brighter idea. Look, construction's nonsense. We're gonna change the way the construction field happens in a much smarter way, right? How do we pull them into a bright idea, right? That's something that wakes them up and goes, yeah, I'm part of creating something a lot bigger than just managing a project.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what we know about human beings is that they are all slightly different. So, for me to feel valued versus for you to feel valued, it might be a slightly different story. So, if your core value, if the thing that's driving you is to help your people evolve, you have to know what that person wants to evolve toward.
Mm.
You have to have had that conversation with that person. So, identifying what that means, people first, absolutely. Maybe one of the things is know their ambition.
All right.
Uh,
So one thing is what drives you every day.
what drives you every day? Yeah. So, most companies have somewhere between 3 and 5 drivers for
3,
their culture.
5 drivers.
Yeah, so it might be people first, safety above all, I don't know. You have to have 3 to 5 drivers to describe what your culture is. The second part of culture is mood. So it's
Ooh.
the way that we treat one another, and it's always can be described as a set of adjectives. So if we as a team are working together and we're creative and collaborative and competitive, there you go, there's 3. Then that mood is something that we're going to expect every time we engage with our teams, right? If you hire someone who is naturally a pessimist and likes to work alone, doesn't like to talk, doesn't like to share, then that's going to be counter to what your culture is that you want, right?
Yes.
So culture is, and it's very actionable. You can describe it with a set of adjectives, is the mood. and describe it with a set of things you care about are the drivers for
Now,
those two things.
How do you figure out what your mood is?
So that's a very astute question. Every company, in my experience, has two cultures at any given time.
Okay.
The one that they have and the one that they want. So describing or finding out exactly what you have is pretty simple. We do a culture snapshot. We just ask two questions, and then you find out all the answers from all of the people, and you can come up with the adjectives.
All right. So give me, what are the two questions?
The first question is about the drivers. Imagine all of your leadership team and your peers are all in the same room. What do you think they care about while they're working? What are the things they care about? Those are the drivers. So what you'll find is there's going to be a lot of answers, but there's a trend. A lot of people will say, we care about investing in our people. And it may be someone will say something that's kind of a one-off, that, we care about making sure we can hold on to slimy fish.
What's the second question?
The second question is, if you are imagine that you're engaging with all of the people on your team. Use as many adjectives as you want and describe what the interactions with one another is. So those interactions could be competitive and creative and collaborative, but it could be tense and siloed and
snarky or pain in the ass. Or I'm always surprised. I've asked this question a few times. What do you feel like the culture is? And a lot of times, you'll have a couple of people who, it never surprises me. It's usually the same people that are kind of snarky. They'll come off, and it's typically the answer to that question is a pretty good mirror to the person that's giving it.
Yeah, often. And if you gather a bunch of like-minded people, you will have a very similar bunch of answers.
Nice.
You'll have a trend.
Nice. All right. So now we've got really go in there, and culture is about what's the driver every day, right? What drives
every decision you make. Yeah.
All right. And the second part of that was
the mood.
And what are the 3 to 5 things that people say about us, or
what are the 3 to 5 things we care about? What's driving our decisions?
Yep.
And what are the 3 to 5 adjectives that would describe how we work with each other?
Got it. So what we think we want, and then what we actually are.
Yeah. So that's what you're actually, asking those questions is going to get you your actual culture. And sometimes it sucks because they do come back with snarky or,
Yeah, no, I listen, I got it. And it's a tough one as an owner to go through that self-assessment, right? Looking at yourself in the mirror isn't always friendly, but I always find out it's like going to the dentist. The work sucks sometimes, but we know that it makes for a healthier body later on, right?
Exactly. You have to know where you are.
Yeah.
As far as where you want to be or your aspirational culture, that's really driven by the leadership team. And the more the leadership team speaks about it and acts with it, the more the actual culture will mirror what you want. Sometimes you can go into a company and you can go to their website and see all of these lovely things that they're all about. And then you can go observe them working together, and it's so far apart that there's no mirroring at all.
It's amazing how in my judgment, it goes up and down, right? And it can even go sideways depending on who you are, where you are, the company. It can be person by person. Human beings are a soup, right? They're a soup of, sometimes there's too many carrots, sometimes there's too much corn, sometimes there's too much salt. There's always this mixture with humans, right? It depends on how much work they are, where they are in the process,
Yeah.
but all of this, take it with a grain of salt, right? It's all a great learning lesson, right? As an owner, look, hiring a consultant like yourself, look, that to me is one of the biggest opportunities is finding. So look, audience, it's time for you to take a second and go, look, if I really want to grow, right? How do I get a company like Miche and have her come in here and help me hire people in a much, much different way, right? It really helped me grow my organization so I can become that organization that I can vision. And when I hire the right people, that's where I get traction, right? All the great books we talk about traction, all of the great, growth books start with finding the right people, getting the right people on the bus, get them all in the right seats, getting the right people to do that. And it starts with this process. Miche, I got to tell you, I'm so grateful for you, the work that you do in the society, the work that you do for companies. Look, this is a big deal. How do people get a hold of you? What's the best way for them to look you up?
Well, my website is thehireeffect.com. And you can see back there, it's THEHIREEFFECT. It's
And I'll
the
put all
hire.
that down. I'll put all that stuff down below so you guys can get a hold of it. And please, look, all of you, I don't care what it is, whatever you've messed up, whatever you've done right, share with the other people. Look, this is what's great about our podcast is that you guys share honestly and you guys share from your hearts. And, that's why we're also vulnerable about, being able to go through this. So, Miche, I am so grateful for you and your time, and audience, I hope you are too. Please take a second and like and subscribe and ask any questions you want. Miche and I will make sure you get them answered. Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the invitation. It's delightful to be myself and to be valuable to people. That was my goal in the very beginning.